Buyers looked at that too when they came to the table to discuss, like, letters of intent and things like that. It was, oh, you're with PCO Bookkeepers, you're a clean operation. I think that in itself was a selling point. We purchased the business from Dad back in 1999. Dad was early 60s, decided he had had enough and wanted to retire and pursue a golf career. So moved to Florida. My brothers and I took over the business. I was kind of the operations guy. I knew the scheduling. I was kind of pretty good with the computer aspect of it, automation, things like that. When we were just, 3 or 4 or 5 guys, probably not. It was pretty easy to keep track of things at that point. It was mostly a cash business back in the day, so it wasn't quite as sophisticated as it has become now. But I knew early on when we purchased the business from Dad, we were kind of hitting that level, and we wanted to grow the business substantially at that point, that we needed a good partner. I had seen Dan and his team speak at various conferences associated with the industry. He kind of set us up on a good chart of accounts. He set us up on Bill.com. He did a lot of things to make kind of the financial side of the business run much smoother for us. It was easy to see where maybe we were not being as efficient as we could be. Maybe our inventory numbers were a little out of control. Maybe our pay structures were a little out of control. And Dan would point that out during our calls and with some of his reporting and suggest ways we could kind of turn things around and become more efficient. Anthony Pepe has been key for us with PCO Bookkeepers. He's kind of our go-to guy. So he's been fantastic. He's been there for a super long time. Always quick to pick up the phone if there's ever a question or a comment, and has some great advice for us. So Anthony's been superior. So we worked with multiple accounting firms over the years, especially, when I was working for my dad, we probably went through 4 different accounting firms at the time. I just felt like they never really totally got what was involved with running a field service operation company. And, some of the pay structures with the employees was kind of unique with production commissions and things like that. That's why I think when we chose to move over to Dan, having come from a pest control background with his past, knowing what it was like to be in our shoes running a company, he knew the issues we were facing. He knew the solutions that we needed to put in place to resolve some of the problems we were having. So I think that's what set him apart from some of the other CPA firms that we'd used in the past. So I think, when we bought the business from Dad in '99, we were fortunate. He financed most of it for us. We got very creative at the time. He was willing to work with us, and it ended up being a win-win for everybody. We always knew that, unless our children stepped up and wanted to take some ownership position of the business, that it would probably end with my brothers and I. We did have some family come in and work for a short period of time. It just wasn't meant to be. My children weren't interested. My brother's children really weren't interested, my nieces and nephews. So for us, I think that the factor was in the past few years, probably COVID was challenging for us. I mean, we survived it. We were fortunate. But there were some sleepless nights. We made payroll when, we didn't know if we were going to have work tomorrow, and prior to any PPP help or anything like that. So that was a bit challenging. We got through it. We had some great people. We didn't want to lose our people. We wanted to make sure they were taken care of. So that was important. As the years went on, the past few years especially, just trying to find quality of help. Because when we hired, we always brought people in that we felt were a good fit with not only the business, but also our family values and culture. And we weren't finding those people as easily anymore. So it was getting more difficult for us to grow the business. I had done it for 40 years full time. I was getting a little tired. I didn't have quite the same fire that I had in my 30s. I just want to spend more time with my family, my grandchildren. So it was time. My brothers and I looked at it a few years ago. The timing wasn't right. We couldn't get the evaluation we were looking for. So we decided to kind of hunker down for a few more years. And then we were fortunate. Dan approached us and said, "Hey, listen, I think I have a buyer and I think they'll match the number you're looking for, your exit number. So we worked patiently with Dan and his team over the past few months, and we're able to actually put a very good deal together. We're happy with the results. I think the buyer's happy with the results. So far, the employees seem to be good. So it was time, and it was a win-win-win. It was a win for us, a win for the buyer, and a win for the employees. Oh yeah, and I think buyers looked at that too when they came to the table to discuss, like, letters of intent and things like that. It was, oh, you're with PCO Bookkeepers, you're a clean operation. I think that in itself was a selling point. They knew there were going to be no secrets, no skeletons in closets popping out or anything like that. When we spoke to Dan initially and he thought he had a prospective buyer, we thought it would be prudent for us to kind of put it out to market and just make sure we're getting fair value, and that some of the other buyers that are pretty aggressive in our marketplace knew we were for sale. So, Dan puts what they call the book together, which is basically, a history of the company, some statistics on current customer counts, value per stop, things like that. But Dan and his team did a lot of that legwork for us because they had access into our operating systems, our CRM system. They were able to pull all that information out and put that book together. Once the letters of intent started to come in, Dan kind of walked us through, like, here are the pros and cons of each one of these. This one is a better deal for this reason. This one's not so good for this reason. So, that was part of it. And then it was really, being on those calls with Dan and my family, my brothers, and, trying to figure out, like, what was going to be the best deal long-term for all of us. So once we agreed on the LOI, then it kind of starts fast tracking. There's standing calls each week with the prospective buyer, and then we get into the real nitty gritty of it. But again, Dan and Steve Linsky at PCO Bookkeepers were just fantastic on getting all the schedules together, getting all the information that the prospective buyer. My brother Mark was great on the HR side, pulling all that information together for them. So there's a lot of moving parts. And I won't say it was easy, but it was manageable with the help of Steve and Dan. I think the biggest pain point for us was just making sure our people were going to be good with the transition. Again, we were selective. I had high school friends that I went to school with that still worked there. My brothers had the same people they had brought into the business that were loyal, dedicated, super good people. And we just wanted to make sure that, through this whole process, they were looked after. And I think one of the things that, kind of came out as we started doing due diligence was the career paths for some of these people would be much better than what we could ever offer them. When you get acquired by a larger company, there were people that had kind of maxed out their positions with us unless we really grew to another level. And I don't think my brothers and I, being at our age, were just prepared to do that at this point. So for them, I think there's some people that are going to flourish in the industry. There's some rock stars we had in our team, and I think, the door just opened for them, and they're going to be very successful. Continued employment for our people, as long as they met kind of the hiring requirements of the new owner, were important for us. So we could kind of help transition that. There's a time window with some of these transactions. They don't occur on one day and everybody walks away. So just during that transition period for X number of months that, we were able to still be somewhat involved to make sure the continued success of F&W and our employees. So Dan was able to negotiate that for us too. So we still have some involvement, a lot of communication with the new owners on a daily basis, making sure that, everything is where it needs to be. And they're excited to grow the business and continue the legacy that our family started. So I think that was important for us as well. Yeah, so if you're considering, a transition somewhere down the road, your exit strategy at some point to sell your business, I would definitely look at getting involved with PCO Bookkeepers early. Take their advice, let them set up your chart of account, your P&L, your balance sheets, set up your systems for you, and take their advice. There's a wealth of information with their team as far as if you really want to grow your company. They can advise you on how to do it. They can also help you get other subcontractors or providers. They just have a really good group of contacts and network of people that can help you succeed. So I would get involved early, kind of know what your game plan is. and then have an exit strategy. So I guess we kind of had an exit strategy. I think early on we bought Dad's company. We probably should have been a little bit more defined on what triggered an exit strategy for us. Because me being the oldest, my brothers were a little bit younger, and when I was ready, they weren't quite ready. So it was kind of a waiting process. And then it was like we knew what we needed to retire on, and coming up with that number and knowing it was time to get out. So know what that is. Know what your exit strategy is. What's going to trigger you to sell. What's is it an evaluation? Is it a net asset price that you're willing to get? Is it a time window? Just kind of think that through, because we really hadn't discussed that in the early stages of our partnership, and I kind of wish we had, and probably would have made our partnership a little bit easier and less tumultuous at times if we had known, this is when we plan to get out, this is the long-term goal.